So we're going to look at all the selection tools that are available to you in Peel to select mesh triangles for editing, for cleanup, for selecting entities. There's a number of reasons why you need these tools. The selection tools are down here on the left, and they are modified by modifiers on the top row. You can have a reduced view, but it doesn't show you all the functions. I prefer to have them all visible to me in one place. The first tool we're going to use is the rectangular selection tool. If you just left click on the part and move your cursor, it will just rotate the part. To use the tool, you have to hold down the control key at the same time, and it changes your cursor, and you can make a rectangular selection of triangles in the mesh. If I want to deselect, I can click on the grey triangles for clear selection or use Control D. The next tool, Freeform selection, is rather like the rectangle selection tool, but you can click at discrete points or hold down the left mouse button for a continuous freeform selection. The brush selection tool is like the freeform tool. You can either click discretely or continuously and select the triangles. You can alter the size of the brush with your mouse wheel or with the slider that you can see top left, and that increases or decreases the brush size. The next tool, Kinect, selects any triangles connected to the point you selected with the control left click. And so it normally selects everything that's connected, and as you can see, it's selected all of this part, but it has not selected triangles that were not connected to the part. So if you look inside here, there, for instance, there's a couple of floaters. Those are in blue, they are unselected. But that's a very good way to now remove those, because you simply choose invert selection, and the previous selected surface becomes deselected, and the previous unselected unattached parts become selected, and you can delete them. The next tool, sudden change, selects outwards from your initial point until it comes to a sudden change in curvature. So here you can see it's gone all the way to the edges where there's a sudden change in curvature. You can select an additional part, for instance the end cap, and it will do the same thing. It will go from the central click point outwards until it meets a sudden change in curvature. And the tolerance can be changed with the slider or numerically to select more or less surface. The next tool is similar curvature. This will select any surface that has a similar curvature to the point where you left clicked with the control key. So here we'll choose this small piece of tubing, and you can see it stays on similar curvature and stops when it gets to a different curvature. Clicking on any of the tubular parts will obviously select all the same curvature of the tube. The next tool, similar normal, is usually used for selecting planes. The only plane we have on this part is this end cap. If you click there, it will select everything that has a similar normal, in other words, a plane. And again, you can adjust the tolerance to numerically or with the slider. The next tool selects isolated patches, again with the slider, going from small isolated patches to larger ones. As we already selected these with the Kinect tool, we don't have any to show you. The curvature tool selects from tight curvatures to large curvatures, depending on the slider position. So you can see here that we've got the tightest curvatures on this small plate. And if we increase the slider, we start selecting larger curvatures. And if you put it to, say, 95, you will select most of the part. The next tool is triangle picking, where you can actually pick individual triangles one by one. This is obviously for detailed work, but it can be useful if you have a particular requirement to remove a few triangles. The last tool is boundary selection, and it simply highlights all the boundaries in your scan. For instance, if you wanted to smooth them or fill them using the other mesh functions. So So those were the selection tools. Now we'll look at the modifiers that modify the behavior of those selection tools. So for example, if I was using the brush tool to select a surface, it will only select what I can see, what the brush tool is looking at right now. But I can in fact modify that. It didn't select through the part, it just selected the surface we can see. So if we deselect and turn on the select through modifier, now when you select, it will select all the way through the part, any part underneath your tool. So if you turn it around, you can see it's selected the other side as well. The next tool is select backface. What this means is you can select triangles from their reverse side. So if I was to try and use this tool without that, I could click and try and select something, but it won't select the triangles, as you can see. But if you turn on select backface and then repeat that operation, you can select the triangles from the rear and they will be selected on the front surface. This tool is useful when you cannot access the front face of a surface to select it. It enables you to select it from the rear. The select all tool does exactly what it says. It selects all the triangles in your mesh. And the deselect tool deselects all triangles that have been selected. If I was to use the brush and then choose invert, it inverts the selection. So that's the invert selection tool. If you have a selection and click on grow selection, it will grow the selection by one row of triangles. And if you click on shrink, it will shrink the selection by one row of triangles each time you click on the tool. One more thing, most of the tools we've used here will actually deselect if you choose Control and Shift when using them. In other words, they work in the opposite direction, if you like, to selecting with just the Control key in use. So that's the overview of all our selection tools.